Good evening, guys. Good evening. Hello. So good to be up here to get to speak. Just like Kira, much more used to having a guitar between me and you. So this is a little bit different, getting to speak to y'all tonight. But I'm excited to get to do so. When Antoine mentioned to me to talk about prominent women, I got really nervous because, as a man, you probably shouldn't talk about women. We don't have a right to even do that. So I got nervous about it. And so I decided to go with someone we could all just relate to. And that was a joke. It's okay. You can laugh at that. So tonight, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a story that we have, that's something that we can all relate to. Tonight, I'm going to focus on the woman at the well and when Jesus encounters this lady. My main point here, women at the well meeting Jesus. So we're going to be in John 4. I'm going to go really fast because I only have 9 minutes and 20 seconds to get through this long, lots of points here. So we're going to jump in really quickly. We're going to be in John 4, 6 through 25. And one of the questions that I want you to have in your brain as we go through this, if you're a Christ follower or someone who's trying to seek after Christ and figure out who this God person is, I want you to ask this question to yourself: are you satisfied? Are you satisfied? Just think about that. All right, let's jump into the passage today. So John 4, 6 through 25. Just to set up a little bit before we get going, at this moment, Jesus is doing his ministry on earth, and he's moving right now, traveling between Judea and Galilee. So he's walking all this way. He didn't have a Corvette back then. He didn't have Uber or Lyft, so he doesn't have any way to get there other than by foot and probably a camel or something. But he's walking that way, and he's getting, tired, as you would if you're walking a long journey. So he stops in this place called Samaria, okay? So we're going to pick up right at verse 6. It says, Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. Enter the Samaritan woman. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink. And that's a weird first thing to say to anybody that you just meet. And so he asked her to give him a drink, for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. And the Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, a Jew, asked for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? I really love, just as we go through this, the way that Jesus is encountering the Samaritan woman and how the Samaritan woman is responding. Real quick history lesson. So there's two different kinds of people back in this time. There's the Jews and the Samaritans, and they've been kind of at odds for a while, right? So they're kind of like got this odds with each other. The best way I can describe that in modern day is like Republicans and Democrats. If you put the two of them in a room about like 3 years ago when the election's going on, it's probably not going to end well. The same kind of idea between Samaritans and Jews. So you see here that the first thing that the Samaritan woman responds to Jesus, who's talking to her, first thing she does is she throws up a wall and she says, oh, hold on a second. You're a Jew, I'm a Samaritan. We don't even talk. And on top of that, you're a man, I'm a woman. Back in that culture, we don't speak to each other. So why are you talking to me? Don't even be talking to me. And so the first thing that she does when she encounters Jesus is throws up a wall. And check out what Jesus' replies was. He replies to her and he says, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. I think it's cool. The first thing that Jesus does is he starts to offer something to her. He says, hey, wait a minute. I'm going to flip this on its head. You're trying to put up a wall, but I'm trying to get past this wall, and I have something I want to give you. He says these three things that's really important in that verse. He has a gift of God to give her, wants to give her a drink that if she would have asked, and it was living water. And so Jesus is starting to talk about this other living water thing. So if I'm like you, I'm thinking like, okay, so what are you talking about? Living water? Like, what is this thing? Is it like sparkling grape juice? No, I don't think so. So she's sitting there, wondering about this. So she goes on and says, the woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock. So she practically goes, well, first of all, bro, you don't even have a bucket. Like, there's like water and there's a well, and you're supposed to draw the water from the well. Where's your bucket at, man? Like, come on. And if you got sparkling grape juice, it must be in that big poncho of yours because it's hiding somewhere. I don't see it. And then she goes on to say, hold on a second. Are you greater than our father Jacob, right? Remember, this is Jacob's well. He goes, are you greater than our father Jacob? This is like my religion. This is my history. Are you greater than this guy who dug this well? You're probably not. And Jesus goes, no, hold on a second. Everyone who drinks of this water, now he's referring to the water in the well, will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. So Jesus he just, first of all, goes like, okay, I know you're trying to throw up walls between us, and now you're trying to say something about like me not even having the water. Well, let me tell you, this water that I'm talking about isn't just water in the ground. I'm talking about something else. So he's starting to push into something a little bit deeper. He's starting to go deeper with her more than just the thirst that we all have for water to just, be alive. Starting to get a little bit deeper with her. And so finally, she's kind of like, okay, eternal life, that sounds pretty good. I'm a little bit intrigued. So here's how she replies. She goes, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." So finally, Jesus breaks down these walls. He gets past all these barriers, gets past all these things, and she finally says, okay, I'm asking you for the water. How about you give it to me? Jesus' reply is very interesting after that. He doesn't just say, okay, here it is. He starts to point towards something deeper. Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." Why would Jesus say that? The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband.' For you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." And this is a moment where you could say, sassy Jesus, because that was a little bit of a sassy response. But you see that Jesus is offering this water, but then he goes on to call her out on something that doesn't seem the most right, that doesn't seem honoring to God, that seems a little bit empty, and notices a pattern about her and just tells her about it and just kind of brings it up. And so she responds in a way, she goes, "Oh, okay, wait a minute. Well, sir, I perceive that you are a prophet, okay? You can see these things, you know what's going on, somehow you know this stuff. But hold on a second. Our fathers worshipped on the mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." And so again, she starts bringing up this religion thing, like, hey, you just called me out because you must be a prophet on these things that I'm not following God. But dude, we're even different here. Like, I worship on this mountain, you worship in Jerusalem. Like, there's the separation. I don't know what you're talking about. Just kind of stay away from me. And here's how Jesus responds. I kind of like saying it this way. I like that way. See, in mine it says, "Woman, believe me." And I don't think that's really meant to be the way it says. But here it says, "Believe me, dear woman." That's much better, because that's really how Jesus is approaching this. It says, "Believe me, dear woman, the time is coming when it will no longer matter whether you worship the Father on this mountain or in Jerusalem. You Samaritans know very little about the one you worship, while we Jews know all about him, for salvation comes from the Jews." Then it goes on in verse 23, "But the hour is coming and is here now, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." So a conversation that started with, "Can you get me some water out of this well?" has turned into this moment where we've gone through all of these barriers, all these things between them, to say, hey, this living water that I want to give you is much more than just some kind of water that will satisfy your thirst, but something that will satisfy your soul. Something that you're missing right now inside of you. You're missing something, and it's a relationship with your Father. It's being able to worship anywhere. It's being able to be connected to God. And that's what he's trying to get at right here, especially when he says, "God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth." And this is what Jesus is pointing out to this woman. "And the woman said to him, I know the Messiah is coming. When he comes, he will tell us all things." And Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." So Jesus is going through this thing, and he approaches this woman who has this deeper need. And he goes straight to it and says, hey, you're missing something in your life. There's something that has not fully gotten to you. You're dissatisfied. And he points out a few things in it. He points out, at first, it's the religion, right? She talks about how I'm a Samaritan, you're a Jew. I worship here, you worship there. She points out even her race. She says, Samaritan Jew, right? Like we have these differences. I am a Samaritan, it's fine. I don't need that. Even points out like her identity in being, in gender. And I'm a woman, you're a man. Like she's building up these walls between them. She even goes on to talk about just even her religious works and everything that she has to give to serve God in her capacity. And then she goes on, Jesus goes on to reveal that this deeper longing she has is causing problems in her relationships. So she's seeking to find meaning in relationships with just like in a romantic relationship. This is the part where I feel like a lot of us can connect to this Samaritan woman. A lot of these things that I just mentioned, like serving God and doing good works at school and at church, finding friendships and finding that romantic relationship aren't necessarily bad things. They're things that bring us a lot of joy in our lives. But what Jesus is pointing at is these things do not fully satisfy us. But there is one who does satisfy us, and that is God. And if he has that proper place, he will satisfy us. So I want us to just take a moment. I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to just reflect for a moment. If you're a believer, I want you to reflect on that thing that you feel like you've put number one in your life. What you put in your life that you're seeking after right now, that you're trying to find satisfaction from, and you just might not be getting it. Whether that be in some way your religion, whether that be in some way your relationships with others, whether that be your service, good works, and this kind of stuff that doesn't satisfy us. And I want you to pray right now and talk to God about it and work that out so that he can be number one, so you can find that satisfaction in him. If you're a non-believer and you're still seeking, I'd ask you that you would, if your heart has been stirred, that you'd pray to this God and ask him if he's there and if there's anything that he's revealed to you, just to keep working on that and working through that, and that he would reveal his goodness to you, because we can find satisfaction in him.